Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really critical moment for AI. See, you've got this entire industry that seems to be pulling itself in two opposite directions at the same time. On one hand, you have this incredible, world-changing promise. And on the other, well, you've got some serious peril. So let's just dive right in. This one sentence from a recent intelligence report, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? This is exactly what we're talking about today. It's this massive, underlying tension that's defining everything in AI right now. And these conflicting forces, they're going to be what shapes our world for at least the next 10 years.
So first, let's talk about the incredible speed of all this. This is kind of the main argument, right? The big idea that AI is on this unstoppable rocket ship and it's headed straight past human intelligence, and fast.
What's really striking here is just how confident they are. I mean, listen to this. You've got guys like Sam Altman at OpenAI, and they're not just talking about this stuff in some vague, someday kind of way anymore. Nope, they're putting actual dates on it. They're setting deadlines for when AGI, AI that can think like a human, is going to get here. And that just completely changes the game. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's a real strategic thing we have to deal with, like, right now.
And we're not talking about the distant future here. 40%. Just let that number sink in. Altman thinks AI could automate 40% of all tasks in our economy, and soon. So you got to understand, this isn't just about cool new apps on your phone. This is a complete rewiring of our economy. It's going to change what work even means.
So you might be asking, okay, what does it actually look like for me, for my job? Well, some roles, yeah, they're at high risk. Think customer support. But even really skilled jobs, like computer programming, they aren't safe. They're just being transformed in a massive way. So what's the takeaway? The single most crucial skill you can have right now is just being able to learn and adapt, because things are changing, and they're changing fast.
And of course, where there's this much talk, there's money. A lot of money. We're talking about truly staggering amounts of capital backing this vision. I mean, a potential $100 billion deal between NVIDIA and OpenAI? That's not just an investment. That is a massive all-in bet on building the literal foundation for a whole new economy run by AI.
Okay, so that's the hype. That's the promise. But now, let's flip the coin. Because there's this other really powerful story gaining steam. And it basically says that all this incredible growth, all this money we just talked about, it might just be a giant, fragile house of cards, ready to topple over.
Which brings us to the big, scary question that's keeping a lot of smart people up at night. Analysts, critics, even some of the investors themselves. Is any of this actually built on solid ground? Or is it all just hollow?
And this fear is so real, it's even got a name. They're calling it the AI Econopocalypse. Kind of dramatic, I know, but the warning is dead serious. The people who use this term, they're saying, we're not just looking at another dot-com bubble here. We could be looking at a crash so big it could take the entire global economy down with it. This right here, this really lays out the contradiction perfectly. On the one hand, you see these headlines about $100 billion deals, you hear hundreds of big companies talking up AI, but then you look under the hood, and the reality is messy. The business models are what some critics have called dog shit. Seriously. A lot of these AI companies, the more customers they get, the more money they lose. Why? Because the cost to run the computers is just insane. And then there's this other weird thing happening, these circular investments. It's like a tech giant gives a startup a bunch of money, and then the startup turns right around and spends all that money on the giant's products. It looks like revenue on the books, but it's not real growth. It's just money moving in a circle.
And as if that wasn't chaotic enough, nobody can agree on the rules of the road. It's like the Wild West. You've got the US tearing down regulations to move faster. You've got countries like Indonesia trying to build these very careful, planned-out ecosystems. And then you have the UN screaming about, killer robots and trying to put guardrails on AI and warfare. The point is, the world is totally splintered on this. There's no global consensus at all.
Okay, so we've got these two giant forces, promise and peril, pulling the industry apart. So how is anyone supposed to navigate this? Well, let's look at how the world is actually adapting, how real people and businesses are finding a way through all this chaos.
Okay, so in the business world, something interesting is happening. We're starting to see what's being called reflexive AI. Think about it like this. When you need to know something, you don't even think about it. You just Google it, right? It's a reflex. That's what's happening with AI in the workplace. It's getting to the point where employees just use it automatically. It's not a special tool anymore, it's just becoming the new default.
And this isn't some future prediction. It's happening right now. On Wall Street,
AI is already part of the daily grind for research. At JP Morgan, they're using it for sales and client management. MasterCard, they're literally embedding AI into your transactions. See the pattern? It's moving from the innovation lab to the very core of how these massive companies operate.
So what about the next generation coming into the workforce? Well, Gen Z isn't just sitting around waiting to see what happens. They're already making some really smart, practical moves. It's being called quiet AI proofing. And what that means is more than half of them are looking at skilled trades, plumbing, electrical work. The other half, they're leaning into jobs that are all about people, like healthcare and teaching. They're basically betting on careers that a robot can't easily take over.
But all this adaptation, it comes with a catch. There's this really fascinating study from Wharton that found what they call a creativity paradox. Here's how it works. If you use AI by yourself to brainstorm, you'll probably come up with better ideas. But when a whole team uses it, something weird happens. Everybody's ideas start to sound the same. It kind of kills off the weird, novel, out-of-the-box thinking. So the paradox is that a tool meant to boost creativity might actually make an entire company less innovative in the long run.
And this brings us to another key adaptation. The very idea of innovation is changing. For a while, it was just a brute force race to build the biggest, most powerful AI model. But that's not the only game in town anymore. The strategy is getting way more diverse. Now you're seeing things like these innovation hubs, like the one in Shenzhen, that make it easier for startups to get going. You're seeing people build small, super specialized AIs that can actually beat the big guys like GPT-4u at one specific thing. And maybe most importantly, you're seeing more and more powerful tools being released as open source, so anyone can use them.
So, look, we've kind of come full circle here, haven't we? It's pretty clear that the entire AI industry is being pulled and stretched by these massive contradictory forces. You've got this incredible promise, but it's staring right at incredible risk. You've got this race for global scale, but also this move towards small, efficient tools. And it's all part of this mad dash into the future, built on an economic foundation that, well, might be shakier than we think.
And that leaves us, and the entire industry, with the one question that really matters. What are we actually watching unfold here? Is this a truly sustainable breakthrough that will change the world forever, or is it one of the biggest economic bubbles in history just waiting to pop? What you should really take away from all this is that the answer to that question is going to define, well, pretty much everything for the next 10 years.